We have a viewer out here which is asking a hilarious question. I'm going to just read it loud. My question is, behind every successful man, there is always a woman. My question is, who is behind an unsuccessful man? This is Sabas from Tamil Nadu in India.
I would say that behind an unsuccessful man is usually a really brutal, competitive father who's saying, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. Try harder. You're useless. That would be my guess. I mean, when I think of the less effective leaders I've known in my career, that's usually what they've grown up with.
Margaret, that is a killer answer, I have to say. But it also leads me into the next part I want to cover here. We have a question from, we call it the BCG Minute. In fact, a recent study, how to future-proof your workforce based on 366,000 respondents across 197 countries, which basically is the whole world. Now, in this BCG study, they revealed that, among others, fear plays a major role in corporations. In fact, fear alone reduces the productivity with some 30%. Now, I want to play this video for you guys, and I think I'll start with you, Margaret, just to hear your reflections. Let's roll the tape.
Hi, my name is Rich Sheridan. I'm the co-founder, CEO, and chief storyteller here at Menlo Innovations in downtown Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I have a question for the M&M panel. When did fear become the big thing in management thinking? When did we ever begin to believe that leading people with fear was the right way to manage human beings? I think it's one of the biggest challenges we have in workplaces today. We've got to root it out. We've got to teach our leaders how to get this fear out of the room, to pump fear out of the room. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you.
So, some of this starts in the 1960s with a social psychologist named Doug McGregor, who had this, what he called theory X and theory Y. They weren't very scientific theories, and one said people come into work in order to not work and to undermine and to be lazy and to skive off. And they've got to be managed and pushed and beaten into submission, basically. And so you have to manage them with sticks. Right. And then the other theory is, the carrot theory, essentially. No, give them things to look forward to and rewards and all this sort of thing. So it's a very kind of vicious, simplistic way of conditioning people. Fast forward, a couple of decades, and you get GE proselytizing this notion of forced ranking, right? Measure everybody once or twice a year, really reward the top 10% and give them all sorts of cool titles and projects and send them on swanky executive training programs. And then the bottom 5 or 10% just throw them out because they're obviously rubbish. Now, what's so fascinating to me about forced ranking is, A, you don't have to be a mathematical whiz kid to see the safest place to be is in the big fat middle of the bell curve. Just be average, not too good, because then you'll have lots of super chickens that you have to fight with. And not so bad, you get thrown out. So actually, it's the recipe for mediocrity. And when I asked people in GE a couple of years ago why they'd thrown out their forced ranking system, they said, well, its real utility is it made it really easy legally to fire people. But when we crunched the data, we saw that nobody ever moved in their ranking, really. If they found a safe spot, they just hung on to it. And you saw something similar at Microsoft, which for years, missed databases, mobile games, all sorts of major technologies. And it was, and when they finally gave up their forced ranking, the creativity of the company just absolutely exploded. It was tremendous. But so these managerial systems create a sense of fear, which either means people give up, learned helplessness, or they start trying to make other people fail so that they look good. So it's a kind of terrible mindset with which to try to inspire people and give them the sense of freedom and autonomy they need to come up with their very best thinking. One other point, I've written in Willful Blindness a lot about organizational silence. This is research done by two academics, Morrison and Millikan, at New York University Stern School of Business, where they asked a whole cross-section of executives, do you have issues or concerns at work that you don't voice? 85% of them said yes. The reason? Fear of retribution from my colleagues or my supervisor. That's a lot of silence. That's a lot of ideas, creativity, concern that's not being articulated because people are still afraid at work.
Marcel, you as a coach, you would have seen this. Why is it that these leaders are doing that?
Well, I mean, to me, this idea of when did fear start? Let's try the cave. Just try the cave. That's where it started. I mean, humans have been managing by fear for centuries. So I think what's healthy in the future is trying not to have fear be the major motivator and do something different for a change. I mean, let's face reality. All these people talking about the new world and how bad it is. Hello, did you ever read a history book? What do you think that was like? It was worse. It was worse. I mean, so I think fear has been with us for a long time. I think that, when Margaret is saying it's fantastic because Peter Drucker said, look, the leader of the past knew how to tell, the leader of the future knows how to ask. All that crap that may or may not have worked in the past is not going to work in the future.
Sophie, and I mean, you studied neuroscience, and I assume that the fear spot must be the amygdala or something like that. Tell me a little bit more about the neuroscience aspect of this and how you navigate this transition we have from a fear-based leadership culture to a very collaborative culture.
I was just thinking when you were talking about this, how similar it is in science in terms of our understanding of human behavior. There's a tremendous amount of research into fear. If I go onto the main database for scientific papers and put in the term emotion, expression, fear, I'll get back thousands of papers, well over 4,000 papers. If I switch out fear for laughter, I'll get back about 150 papers. And it really is the case that we have constructed generally, when we talk about emotions in the sciences, what we mean are negative emotions. Only relatively recently, people like Barbara Friedrichsen have been arguing we should study the positive stuff as well because that matters. But it seems less scientific. So you can take, one of the reasons why fear is so big in neuroscience is you can study it in mice. We can operationalize what fear means in mice, and then we can apply that to humans and to our understanding of the brain in what looks like a seamless way. And that's great. But mice also play. They do happy things. We just choose to ignore that in terms of building our models of emotion. So I think there is a change coming, and it's happening. There is more work now when people have sort of taken a step back and said, important as negative emotions are, positive emotions are, if anything, more important. For example, they tend to be social emotions. They're the ones that govern or are managing your interactions with other people. And just like Margaret was saying, we know that if you want people to do things, you will always be more successful if the way that you're rewarding this is a positive way. That there is, one of the best ways of improving mood is to have something to look forward to. So it's actually just a better, in terms of psychology, way of both motivating people and understanding humans is to think about positive emotions. And I'm hoping that is starting to translate into the science of how we approach management.